Hi, I'm Gina Wells.
Hi, I'm Kat Toon.
And this is the Success Principles Podcast. Michigan is known as the birthplace of Motown, headquarters to the auto industry, and home of the beautiful Great Lakes. The Success Principles Podcast features professionals and entrepreneurs with ties to this great state who have demonstrated innovation and success both within and outside of our Mittens border.
Well, good morning, and Renee Costa is joining us today on Success Principles with Gina and Kat, and we're so thankful to have you here, Renee. Welcome.
Thanks for inviting me, Gina.
Yeah. Well, Renee, you and I have been longtime friends and really clients. We met because you started coming to me for retirement planning, and congratulations, because we'll let you tell your age, but you are at retirement age and you have recently retired. And we want to hear about your story, your success principles from your Michigan roots on to where you are today and how you were successful in the positions that you held along the way. Now, one of the things that I'd like you to share with us is that you kind of learned from working and just building up. And so we want to hear that from you today. And Renee, let's start with growing up in Livonia. Tell us a little bit about your Michigan roots.
Well, you know, my parents got married and they bought their $12,000 house in Livonia in a little subdivision with a billion other couples that had just got married, and they all started having kids. So I had a perfect situation growing up. I had 20 friends right on my block that were all my age. So it was a very modest upbringing. We didn't really know that we weren't rich. We thought that, everything was fine. But as I grew up, I realized that, could have been doing better, but great growing up in Livonia, great neighborhood, lots of outdoor play just all the time. And my parents...
Are you still in contact with the friends that you had back there in your old neighborhood to this day?
No, I am. My next door neighbor was like a sister to me. She lives in Denver now, and I get out there once a year to see her. And her sister is still here, who actually just helped me with a landscaping project. I don't see a lot of the others, but I hear things, from time to time. My mom kind of stayed in touch with some of the neighbors that moved away. Mm-hmm. So I think I told you I had a cousin who was 12 or 13 years older than me, who was an executive secretary. And she had a red convertible and this bleached blonde bouffant. I thought she was the coolest thing in the world. And that's all I wanted out of life, was to become a secretary, an executive secretary. So she taught me to type when I was 9 years old. She had a typewriter and she set me up with a book, and I was typing 60 words a minute at 9 years old.
Impressive.
I know. So you should have seen what happened when I went into high school and we had typing class. I mean, I blew everybody, of course, right?
So you have these typing skills now, and you go to high school and you have this vision. Is that a vision that you held on to, this vision of wanting to be an executive assistant or secretary?
It really was. A lot of my friends that went on to college became teachers. And I kind of did some math in my head, and I figured I could make as much money as a top level executive as I would ever make as a teacher. And this was all the early to mid 70s. Women weren't going out and getting jobs as engineers or consultants or accountants. It was a different time.
Right.
So I decided not to go to college. I started applying for jobs right out of high school. As a matter of fact, when I was in high school, my final year, there was a experimental program called Secretarial Studies. Mm-hmm. And instead of it just being an hour-long class like all the rest of the classes, it was a 2-hour class. We all took our break at a different time, just like you would in an office. And we were taught everything from how to file documents properly, how to answer the phone, and use a switchboard, how to make coffee.
Wow.
I mean, it was honest, isn't that funny? But it was something that they knew that you would need to know how to do.
Those are great skills.
Well, and this course also included shorthand, and I still take shorthand at 120 words a minute. I don't do it for any reason other than when I'm taking notes generally, but I did work for a man 10 years ago or so who loved it and dictated everything to me. So,
that is really unique.
I got a job out of high school working in the sales department of an auto supplier in Southfield. Nice offices, a lot of great people, and I was there for 6 years. That's where I met my husband. And then we got married and moved to California. And we were there for 9 years. And in 9 years, I had 5 jobs.
Wow.
Mostly because I would get bored. If I'm not challenged, if I don't find the work interesting, it's time to move on. But I'm one of those people who, when I do move on, I always give my boss notice. I'm leaving. Please find a replacement, hire her, I'll train her, and then I'll go on my way and do something else, which was always very well appreciated because I knew I could always just find a job in a week if I needed to.
You know, Renee, we were talking about your success principles of your father in a previous conversation we had, and that those have led on with you to be respectful of the employer and things of that nature. Share with us a little bit about the work ethic that you had back then and how you carried that through your career and how that helped you through your 25 years at Alex Partners, correct?
Right. Which was very strange after having had, 5 jobs in 9 years in California, and then to come back here and end up at the same place. Nobody could believe that I was still there after 3 or 4. You're still there? But my dad worked his heart out. He was a window engineer, and he worked for a window company in Brighton, and he used to go in every Saturday. I remember this my whole life. Dad always worked Saturday mornings, and I would say to Mom, nobody else's dad works on Saturday. She'd say, well, your dad looks at things a little bit differently, and he likes to go in on Saturday and make sure that everything from the week was done and that everything is ready for the week that's coming up, and clean up any messes and just be prepared. And he did this every single Saturday my whole life. It never really occurred to me to ask why he would do that as a child, but now as a grown-up, I can see that he had this great work ethic that he passed down to me and my siblings. We are all the same. We all work so hard. No consideration of hours or day of the week or anything. If a job has to get done, it has to get done. And I'm really thankful for my dad teaching us to be that way about our jobs. I know so many people that aren't.
And you honored him by bringing that same work ethic throughout your career. And then tell me how you got started at Alex Partners.
When we moved back to Michigan, I had a couple false starts. I worked for another automotive supplier, wasn't real happy there, did some temp work. And I was registered with an agency that called me up to interview for a job with Alex Partners. At the time, they were called J. Alex and Associates. I'd never heard of them. There were 40 employees in their Southfield office, and they had about 6 people in a very small office in New York. The first time I interviewed with them, I did not get the job. That was for a position to work directly for Mr. Alex as one of his 3 assistants. I figured later that it was probably good that I didn't get that job because those women worked way harder than I ever wanted to. But but when they had another opening about a year later, they called me back, and I accepted the job working for probably 4 partners at the time, although they weren't called partners, and a consulting staff. And it was very secretarial. I made travel arrangements. I sorted mail. I just that kind of type their little letters and stuff. After about 3 years.
You were prepared. You had learned that in your class.
So then the firm started to grow, and it was growing very fast. And the gentleman that was in charge of all administrative functions for the firm let his assistant go because she just couldn't keep up, and asked me if I'd be interested in working for him. And it was just such a great change for me to go to work for him. He actually had so much going on that he involved me very deeply in. I mean, I was really his right-hand man. And it was great. The firm grew. We opened offices all over the world. There was a period of about 5 years where I think I worked an extra 500 hours a year. We were going in almost every Saturday for a few hours. And then it just got to be too much. And he had to start hiring like a CFO and an HR person, HR director, to offload some of his work. And I decided at that time that I wanted to move on and do something else that didn't involve travel arrangements and things like that. So I took the portion of my job that I was doing with client contracts and moved out. He hired another secretary, and I was the first person in what would become the new legal department.
Yay!
Yay, right?
Yeah.
I loved working with the client contracts. I'm really good at the English language, the written English language, which is interesting. And people don't know this, but when you're taught shorthand, you're taught punctuation to the point where I am an expert. I mean, I can pick out any punctuation error anywhere. It's just really one of those things they teach you. And so the contracts that we did were in letter form. They weren't like a form where you type things in. It was all a letter. They're called engagement letters. And so the first thing I would do is get one in for review, and I would get to edit it. And I loved that. Rewriting the way they said things, fixing things that were wrong, it was great. And the firm just kept growing and growing and growing. And there were more and more and more engagement letters. And so they hired another woman to help me. We eventually hired a general counsel, then a bankruptcy attorney, and then an employment attorney. And it just blew up. Now Alex Partners legal department is probably 30 people in Southfield, and I think we have another 20 in London. So as the firm grew, so did our department. I kind of stuck with the contracts group and handled that throughout the years, and it was always changing. And I think that's really the reason I stayed so long, is because things always changed, never got bored. Never saw a sameness to my days. Never knew what was going to hit me when I got there in the morning. Opening up email was always like, oh, what am I going to have here today?
So you, through your 25-year career, when did email really start for you?
Well, really, when you go back to when I first started working there, we were saving all our documents on 2 floppy disks. One that we worked with, and one was a backup. There was no email. There was no network. There was nothing. You wanted to share a file with somebody, you put it on a floppy disk and gave it to them. So that is one thing that may have limited me through my career to this day. I only ever learned to do the stuff that I needed to do at Alex Partners. Like, don't ask me to sit down and do an Excel pivot table. Couldn't even tell you what it is, But
well, that's unique, Renee. And one of the things, you were happy in your job. So, what did the employer expect of their employees? Right. So, are there a lot of people who had 25-year careers there, or what are the things that an employer in a corporate America expects so that they're happy and you're happy and a long career can happen?
I had I have to say, getting this position with J. Alex and Associates at the time was the luckiest thing that's happened in my life, besides meeting my husband, of course.
There you go.
Mr. Alex is unbelievably generous and cares a lot about his people, cares that his people work together well. So in order to get a job with Alex Partners, there is a 5-hour assessment that a candidate has to go through. Most of it's online, and it's testing, but you don't even know you're being tested. They're asking you questions like, would you rather work in a flower shop or a machine shop? It identifies the people that they're looking for, which have the traits of being a worker/persister, a harmonizer. I'm a big harmonizer and a big worker.
Yes, you are.
And then there are other categories, and it really does help. As our legal team grew through the years and people took this test, there were some that were rejected because it was felt that they would not fit with the team. They had the skills, they had the qualifications, they had the smarts, the experience, but it's very important to Mr. Alex that the people at work well together and enjoy working well together. So that was just amazing, having people that I worked with all day who were not just like me in every way, but we all had the same traits as far as work goes. I've never seen people work so hard. It was just amazing to me how hard people work there, and still do. Things have gotten better as we've grown and fleshed out the department, and but there was a time when I was pretty much responsible for everything in the legal department until it did start growing and I could offload stuff to other people. I think one of the things.
So delegation, delegation is a success principle. Sometimes it's hard to delegate, but you found ways to delegate. Did you teach other people how to delegate?
It wasn't easy for me because I am one of those people who feels like if I want to have it done right, I should just do it myself. But I learned over the years how to teach people to do things and how to do it in a way that was not condescending or talking down to them like I went like a kindergarten teacher. Mm-hmm. And I had to teach a lot of people over the years to do a lot of things. I had been there since the early days of the firm. I think, the firm started in 81. So it was 14 years old when I joined, and it grew and grew and grew. And because I was in the position supporting the man in charge of all the administration, I knew everything. And as it grew, and he had to start offloading some of his responsibilities, I sort of lost a little knowledge in some areas. But right up until the day I left, it was still known throughout the firm by everybody. If there's something you need to know and you can't reach somebody and you can't figure it out, just call Renee Costa. She'll figure it out. And I would tell people, I don't claim to know everything or how everything works anymore now that the firm is huge, but I can figure it out. I can tell you who to talk to.
Every company has that person, and
I was that person. I was that person there. I think I get a lot of satisfaction out of helping other people do their job successfully. Mm-hmm. I'm not looking for recognition or awards or anything, although I do have a few. But
success to you is making other people successful as well.
Right.
That's really interesting. Yeah.
Right. So, and it was not an ambitious path to become an executive secretary, but it was something that I really wanted to do. From the time I was probably, 9 years old, learned how to type, thought it was the coolest thing ever. So,
and so you followed your passion.
Yeah.
You followed your passion, Renee.
Did.
And one of the things too that was successful, so you could retire, so you felt like you were able to, you had employee benefits, but you and your husband came together and said, all right, what else do we need to do to be able to retire? And so also part of your success to get to retirement to where you're at today. And just on a side note, there's a decade between all of us, right? And
Right.
as we look back to young people today, what do they see, right? As the internet, everything's on the internet, right? A lot of IT and working that way. But so we have a lot of different experience, but it all starts with a dream. Sounds like you had a dream, and you met your dream. Now in retirement.
And as I had said, Mr. Alex was so generous. The first few years I was with the firm, we would get bonuses 3-4 times a year in addition to the Christmas bonus. He then, in 2002, he put into place a bonus plan that paid us all out a quarterly bonus. So from 2002 till 2006, when that plan ended, I was getting a check every quarter for an additional $3,000 to $4,000, just out of his generosity, sort of a profit sharing. And then when he decided to take on somebody else, sell out some of the equity in the firm, he put this plan together that was amazing. And based on your length of service and your salary in relation to others in the firm, you were given what he called sale units. And when he sold half of the company, everybody got a payout. And as I recall, that payout for me was about $100,000. So,
Nice.
yes. And I'm glad that didn't happen until after I met you. I think had I met you in 2002, I would have been smarter about those quarterly bonuses. What I did with them was every time I got one, we did something to the house, or we took a vacation, or, bought a car, or whatever.
Those are things that we don't know until we talk to somebody or have conversations like we're doing right now.
And you've managed to achieve a dream that a lot of people want to now, because, Gina and I talk to people all the time, and we'll ask them, well, what do you see? When do you want to remove yourself from working? And a lot of them will say, well, 65, but most likely it'll be 70. So there's that realization that even though they would like to be done earlier, the reality is not a lot of people are able to, and you have. So what felt right? When did you feel like you were okay to make that leap?
Well, it's a little sad, but my husband injured his spinal cord a few years ago, and he doesn't get around real well anymore. And he's got some issues with feeling in his hands and strength, in addition to the walking problems. So a lot of the things that he was doing as part of the household, I had to take over. The ones that I didn't want to take over, I just hired people to do. But it just started to feel like I was working all week, and then on the weekends, I would be doing things around the house that he used to do, and I would start to feel a little resentment almost. And I had to step back and say, this was not his fault. He is not doing this stuff to bother me. And as I thought about it, I realized that the money that we had saved was for a retirement that should have included a lot of travel. And it's not going to include that travel now, not for him. I still plan to do some traveling with, girlfriends and whatever, but knowing that I wouldn't need to be spending that money on travel with him, I thought, maybe it's a good time to leave, come home, and take care of my house and my husband and my pets, and just have some time to myself.
Financial security behind that too, to help you to do that, right? I do want to preface something that another reason that you remortgaged is because you were paying your house off as fast as you could, right? You were putting all the money in the equity of your home. And then you actually went through the downfall of your house being worth this to being worth this. And you're like, man, am I glad I took that cash out. But the other thing too is that you start saving the difference of the mortgage payment. And so the equity of our home is like, it's a lifestyle expense, right? And now you've chosen to make a lifestyle decision. And almost everything that Kat and I do with our clients are based on their lifestyle, right? What is it you want to have happen, And so over 25 years of your career, I mean, it's just an amazing thing. I'm happy that you're retired. That you're retiring, I think it's great. And I'm proud to have been a part of the financial part of your life along the way, and will continue to do so.
And I'm so thankful to you for what you have done for us.
What are your plans? What do you see for your retirement?
I took a month to just sort of putter around the house and relax and have some time with some friends and relatives that were in town. I actually am going to make a call on Monday to start volunteering for the DNC, making phone calls, writing postcards, whatever. There's some other volunteer work I'd like to do, but between now and November, I'm going to really focus on the election. Helping people get out to vote, helping people register, making sure everybody knows they can vote absentee, that you don't have to go and risk your life to stand in line to vote. So I
COVID world.
do that. And then after the election, I don't know. I'd love to work with animals, possibly volunteer at a shelter or the Humane Society or whatever. And I'll look into that after the election.
Good. Not to mention, hopefully you'll get to travel again. Yeah.
When is that going to happen?
I know. Yeah, we don't know.
I had actually planned to retire in December, and then I thought, well, let's just wait till February, hit my 25 years, and then I'll go. But they hadn't found a replacement for me. And by mid-March, we had talked to a few women, and then they sent us home, and we never went back. And I was this close to telling HR to just put it all on hold. It's ridiculous right now. How are we going to interview people? How are we going to start somebody from home? I just thought, you know what? It's not a good time for me to go. But I talked to this woman that they wanted me to talk to, and she blew me away. And I knew that she would be great at my job. And so we hired her, and I trained her like this remotely.
Oh, great.
She's doing a fabulous job. I'm so happy. And so I'm glad I didn't put it on hold for that reason. And also just because I think this whole sitting in this little room working in front of a computer all day was starting to get a little old for me. It's I worked in an office with a bunch of really cool people, and I missed them so much. And if I couldn't have that, then just go off and do something else.
Understandable.
Well, good.
Yes. But I did.
Renee, go ahead.
Go ahead. In my younger years, I really thought I would work until I was 70. Even, as I first started getting Social Security statements when I was, in my 30s and 40s, I would look at those numbers and I would say, yep, I'm going to work till I'm 70 so I can get the most money. And here I am, I'm 64, and I don't have a job. I'm retired. I don't have to get up and take a shower every morning, which is like the best part. I can't even tell you how nice it is to wake up in the morning and not have to jump in the shower, jump into makeup, jump into clothes. It's just so great. I can take an hour with my coffee and the newspaper. It's nice. So
wonderful. You are still working in retirement. You're working at the things you love to do, right? There's going to be little things you're going to find, Renee, and I know that because you're a people person. And that's part of your success over the years, is your friendliness, your honesty, and the participation, right? The ability to work with others very well.
And I think, it's something that I saw in people as I worked longer and longer. Who are the people that I like to deal with, and what is it about them that I like? And I tried to model myself on that. And my goal was always just to be as helpful as I could to people and help them do things so that they could do bigger things. When you've got a partner who's billing $1,000 an hour and he calls me and says, I'm having trouble with this software program, I can't get the contract to create. And I would say, okay, give me possession of the contract. You go do something billable. I'll take care of this and get back to you when it's ready. And that was always so appreciated. And it was one of the things that people said about me when I retired, and they had a big comment board at work on our intranet, and people wrote things that they remembered about me or liked about me. One of the things was that I was just so helpful. And I like being recognized for that.
That's great.
I learned at some point that niceness is so easy. It's so easy to be nice to people. It's so easy to say to somebody that I don't really know very well, and I run into them in the kitchen, wow, that's a great dress. Where did you get it? Whether I like the dress or not, you know what I mean? Just to make a friend, to have a positive interaction with somebody.
Renee, I have a feeling you and I would have been best friends in an office situation. I think you would have got a lot less work done than you probably did.
But people do respond when you notice something about them and say something positive about it, or be friendly to people. I talk to people in the grocery store all the time. It drives my husband crazy. But you have to comment on their cute kids, or there was a lady and her son riding their bike by me the other day, and he had this incredible bright orange, really cool bike. And I said to him, awesome bike, dude. And he was so happy. And then when his mom came by, I said, he really loves that, huh? And she goes, oh, you wouldn't even believe it. And, I hope I made their day better by that little interaction.
Aww.
Yes, for sure. I know you did. Kat, do you have any other things you want to talk about today before we end our session with Renee Costa?
No, I'm just so happy I got to talk to you, and gives me something to shoot for. And thanks for joining us and telling us about your life.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Say hi to.
Sometimes
say hi to Steve.
It's good to reminisce and think back on the things that happened, and
that's really what this podcast is about, is Michigan roots. How were you successful? We have so many success stories in Michigan. We have so many people who have their own businesses or even support businesses like yourself. So we like to run the gamut to get everybody on here and think positive and think successful principles. Right. Renee, thanks for joining us today. We'll be in touch, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks a lot.
Mm-hmm. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening to our show. We know your time is valuable, and we appreciate that you have taken the time to stop by for a bit.
For more information about the topics we discussed today, there are links in the show notes for your reference. If you'd like to learn more about the Success Principles podcast and about Kat and myself, go to www.successprinciplespodcast.com. Gina Wells is an investment advisor representative of Retirement Wealth Advisors Incorporated, an SEC registered advisor. Success Principles Podcast and RWA are not affiliated. Exposure to ideas and financial vehicles discussed should not be considered investment advice or recommendation to buy or sell any financial vehicle. This information should not be considered tax or legal advice. Individuals should consult with professionals specialized in fields of tax, legal, accounting, or investments regarding the applicability of the information for their situation. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. Investments will fluctuate, and when redeemed may be worth more or less than originally invested.